The more I find out about our government and our elite-owned media, the more I'm convinced that what they tell us is usually the opposite. And when I saw them calling Putin a dictator and a tyrant, and then I saw all the media coverage about how people in his country were objecting to the elections and him being voted in as president, I saw a red flag. So I started doing some investigating on the internet. And the first two things I found out was that during the election, Putin spent millions of dollars to have live stream cameras, webcams, put in all of the places where the voting counting was going on, so that anybody that wanted to watch the counting of the votes could do so live stream. And he spent a lot of money to do that, to be completely transparent. And I thought that that was pretty cool, especially with all the vote fraud going on with Ron Paul right now. I think that it's something that our government should take a look at. Anyway, and then the next thing I saw was that he had actually had a 4.5 hour interview, question and answer session with his country. He let the people call in and ask questions, not the media with their formed questions to try and form opinions, but he let anybody ask any question that they wanted to. For 4.5 hours, it was televised. Now that's pretty cool. There's another thing that our government could take a look at. And during that, this kind of told me a little bit about his character. During those questions, he was asked about, apparently John McCain was tweeting. John McCain tweeting, I don't know. Anyway, he tweeted something about, this is not word for word, but it was in the context of Putin better be careful if he wins, that he could end up like Gaddafi. And that could be considered a threat. And when they asked Putin about it, if he had read it or seen it, he said yes, he had. And he just kind of smiled and he calmly said, well, John McCain was a prisoner of war from Vietnam, and they didn't just put him in a cage, but they put him in a pit in the ground, and he was held there for years. And he supposed that that could drive anybody crazy. So I thought that was a really wonderful answer to that. There was somebody that had written some obscenities across one of the voting slips, and it was mailed in because this person was from out of the country. And they asked if he'd seen that, and he said, "Oh yeah, I saw it." And he said that the person had mailed it in from Britain, and he said that he was glad. He said that it didn't, it was cursing him out, but he said he was glad to see that people were taking his advice and actually mailing their votes in from other countries, as long as they were registered, and that he was glad to see that he had voted. And so this did not sound like a man that was a tyrant and a dictator to me. So I started doing some investigating, and this is what I found out. That Putin, when he first got into power back in 1999, when Boris Yeltsin resigned, he first of all ended the war in Chechnya, made the people happy. Second of all, he cut all the taxes across the board to 13%, including the taxes for the rich. Then the next thing he did was he met with the oligarchy that was the television media at the time, and no, I'm sorry, he didn't meet with him. Somehow the man got arrested. And then he made a deal with him that you can get out of jail as long as you promise that you will leave the country and you will sell your TV station to the state. And so that's what happened. They let him out and he left and gladly sold the TV station to the state. And so Putin took control of the media because the media had been owned by the elite and the oligarchies. And so then the next thing he did was he had the oligarchies meet in a meeting with him. And because the oligarchies had been running the country for years, and this was a combination of men that owned the oil industry there and the elite, as we know them in America. So anyway, he said to them that if you choose business, please stick to business. In other words, you will not be influencing the politics any longer. And then he said, you all created the government. If you don't like it, then you are to blame. We are meeting you halfway and slash taxes, and now we would like you to start paying what you owe. So then the next thing he did was start making them pay their taxes because they weren't, just like ours don't. And next, he made a treaty with the U.S. after the Cold War to limit the amount of warheads and missiles that each country could make. And they made an agreement to a certain amount would be all that either country could make. And Bush decided that he needed that treaty to go away. He didn't really want to have it any longer, and that concerned the Russians very much. And so when Bush suggested it, he said, the treaty was not made to protect us from each other. It was meant for us together to be protected against everybody else. And Putin didn't go for that. He said, no, we worked a very long time to get to that point, and we're not going to ruin what we've already built, and we're leaving the treaty in place. And so after that, 9/11 happened, and Bush asked him if we could set up bases over in Russia on their borders so that we could reach Afghanistan easier. And Putin wanted to do it, but he took it to the parliament like they're supposed to and asked their opinion. And of course, they were very concerned because we have a habit of putting up bases places and then never going away. And so Putin convinced the parliament to let us do it by saying, it's times have changed and we need to help the Americans right now. And that there was something in it for them because there were camps over there that were left from the Chechnya terrorists, and they were still occupied there. And they were hoping that our U.S. forces could go in there and either kill the terrorists or capture them and turn them over to Russia. So the parliament went along with it, and they agreed to let us set up the bases. So after the bases were set up, then Bush decided, we're not going to go along with this missile treaty, and he tore it up. And he sent Colin Powell over there, and after he tore up the treaty, and Colin Powell met with him, and Putin said to him, "This is terrible. You're kicking out the legs of our strategic stability. I will criticize you." And Colin Powell said, "Yes, I know and I understand." And Colin Powell said he'd never forget this, but the next thing that happened was Putin just kind of laughed, and then he leaned forward to him and he said, "Okay, now we don't have to talk about this anymore. You and Igor," which was his foreign defense minister, "you get busy making a plan for a new strategic framework." And so they did. And, after they set up the bases over there in Russia, the Al-Qaeda came to the border patrol there in Russia and sent a message to Putin saying, "Let's combine together and fight against America." And Putin told them in an American term, "Fuck off," which was really cool. And so anyway, then what happened after that was Putin was against the war in Iraq. And he thought there was a better way to control the weapons of mass destruction. So he, along with France, were the key votes at the UN, whether they were going to approve us going to war with Iraq or not. And they got together and decided to vote against it. And so we never did get UN approval. We went in without it. Putin he also believed that the people should own their own land and be able to have the rights to sell it. And so he had a bill drawn up, and he went to the parliament to pass this bill. And he didn't, but his minister that was in charge of reading the bill. And when he got there, you got to understand the way they got their federation right now. They have got their own democracy. It's a type of democracy. It's the Russian Federation. And then they still have communism represented there too. So like we have the Republicans and the Democrats, they have the communists and their, I don't know what they call them, their federation, I guess. And when the minister that was going to read the bill started to go to the podium, the bill has to be read in order to be passed. And so all the communists jumped up in the aisleway and were trying to block the way so that he couldn't get to the podium. Well, he managed to get to the microphone and he read the bill, and it did get passed. And it was chaos after that. One of the communists went up and headbutted the minister that had read the bill and then punched him, and then it went into a battle of fisticuffs all over the place. It was crazy. I just can't even imagine that happening in our Congress. But he's fighting for the people. He's fighting for his people. So I just want to wrap this up by saying that, that Putin has done an awful lot of good things that we would love to see our government do for us. Making the elections transparent, of the 4.5 hour question thing for the people, fighting for the people's rights, and being concerned about the world, pretty much trying to do the right thing. And maybe everything he's done has not been perfect, and maybe he had reasons for doing some of the things that our media has turned around and made it look like it was a bad thing, but maybe it wasn't really such a bad thing. And we could only hope that we could get a man like Ron Paul in place so that maybe some of these things could happen for us. So I encourage you to do your own investigating, and don't do it in the media. Do it on the internet where you have access to other countries' media and a lot of information and government documents and official papers, the things that you can do your own research in. It's better than a library. Find out for yourself what's really going on. And wake up. Wake up. Americans are asleep. We're too busy watching American Idol and Snooki to pay much attention to what's going on in our foreign policies. And we want to believe that everything's always good and that they tell us the truth on the news, and then that's all the time we have to really put into researching for ourselves is just turn on the 5 o'clock news, and we're filled with our information for the day, and we accept that. And please wake up. Don't accept what you're hearing on the TV. It's not true. Most of it is not true. Do your own research. Do it on the internet. Take some time. It's very important. It's a very crucial time right now. The things are more crucial now, I think, than ever before, and it's all going to come to a head pretty soon. And I don't think you want to be the one that was asleep and didn't see it coming from behind. So do some research, and thanks for watching.